COVID-19 has exposed Africa's digital divide. Next to poor infrastructure, limited access to digital payment systems is considered one of the most binding constraints for e-commerce in the developing world. Cash is used in almost 90% of retail transactions in Africa, forcing digital businesses like Uber to resort to its use. For more on this, I'm now being joined by Leon Isaacs, the CEO of DMA Global, a development consultancy specialising in improving environments for payment systems, remittances and diaspora investments. Leon Isaacs, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. According to some recent data, online spending is expected to reach $4.5 billion in Nigeria. If you compare it to where I am here in the UK, it's $885 billion per year. Clearly, there's a massive gap. Where are the obvious hurdles in Nigeria and across Africa?
Well, thank you, Juliana. I think the first point says you've got to start somewhere. So Nigeria started a long way behind the UK in this whole process. I think you really have to start with how many people actually are familiar with financial products, how many people actually access products that aren't cash related. And the numbers for Nigeria, you're talking at around about 30% of people that actually access products through an account or digitally. So you're starting off from a much lower base there. Secondly, the infrastructure is just not there to get these systems where you can do real-time payments to buy goods and services is extremely complex, takes a long time to build. You need the right regulatory environments and so on. And I think if you look at the availability of the products and services, we're only just seeing those begin really in Nigeria and a lot of other parts of Africa. So we're just starting at the beginning in Nigeria, and I suspect if they can learn lessons from other countries, it won't take as long to actually get to the right position for them. I think we sometimes forget that the number for the UK is impressive, but the country as a whole has been working on it for 50 years, one way or another. In Nigeria, we're talking about probably a matter of 5 years or so. So, you know, sometimes I think we give African nations a hard time when they haven't had some of the luxuries that the UK have had in terms of time, attention, money and resources to achieve these things.
Yeah, perhaps more patience is needed. There was a report last week, Leon, talking about the informal sector as the Africa Risk Report. And they said that even though 70% of the economy is the informal sector in sub-Saharan Africa, during COVID, they have seen a formalisation of this sector. Because, of course, if you can't go out and earn your wage, you need these palliatives, you need these government handouts. And therefore, data is starting to grow from these sectors. Do you think this is a flash in the pan, or do you think governments, policymakers will be able to work on this to enhance the data, to start pushing, market traders onto digital platforms?
Well, I think it is a massive opportunity. And in a way, it's one of the good things to have come out of COVID, because COVID's really given an acceleration to things that people have been talking about and known for a long time. In that digital is efficient, it's cheaper, and generally it's better for people. And what's really COVID has done is, because people haven't had any other choice, they've tested it and they've used it. And getting people to trust digital payments or anything that's out of the norm is actually quite a difficult task, particularly in an environment where there's generally a lot of fraud and mistrust. So what's happened is people have tried, seen it works, and will continue to do it. And I think going forward, it's really important that we don't sort of take the foot off the pedal and actually find means of encouraging and incentivizing people. It's well known for developing countries that actually getting the government to make its own payments to its citizens digitally is actually one of the first ways you go about trying to encourage greater use. And so I think it's really important for those countries that aren't doing that at the moment at a government level to really start doing that. And the more you do that, the more people will take it up for sure.
Well, yeah, that's a really good point. And you mentioned the government a lot there. Do you think African citizens need to stop, relying on the government, and perhaps, we need more of a push from the public sector when it comes to, evolving and improving the digital payment ecosystem? Do you think that's where the objective should be?
Well, I think it needs to be a real partnership. I know it's very corny, but it does need to be a partnership between the government and the private sector. I think what we need is the private sector to bring the products, the know-how, and the technical solutions. And we need government to basically provide the right regulatory environment and, in cases, infrastructure. So I'm talking here about, phone masts in rural areas and so on, to actually make things happen. But generally speaking, it's a partnership. Private sector delivers the product. The government, in effect, does no harm. It makes sure the private sector can operate in a safe and fair way for all users, but not in a way that's so restricted that it's either impossible or very expensive to introduce products. That's really the role for government here.
We're running out of time, Leon. I want to talk a little bit about DMA Global. You're the CEO of that firm. What are some of the projects that you're working on in Africa, or are you consulting with firms in Africa? Because digital payments is really kind of a buzz term on the continent at the moment. I've had several of these conversations over the past couple of weeks.
Yes, I mean, it's great, actually, because we've been advocating digital, I'd say, for 8 to 10 years now. And finally, we're seeing traction. And a lot of our work is partially working with governments, actually, to make sure that they're creating the right environment to allow people to pay and receive money digitally, particularly from outside the continent. But we're also working with a lot of companies that want to operate in Africa, don't know enough about it, but have good service solutions there. So actually, for us, digital is completely changing the way we look at things. It's like a step change has been made, which is really encouraging. So for us, it's really exciting. It's like the culmination of too many years' work all coming together at the same time, which is absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. The pandemic has done so much in so many different ways, right? Good and bad. Leon Isaacs, CEO of DMA Global Limited. Thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global.